All right, it is 12:30 on Friday, August 30th, and I am calling the 24-25 academic year for CT State Senate into session. And I want to welcome you all to our first meeting. I'm very excited about the work that we have ahead of us. As we get things underway, I would like to ask if there are any objections. Are there any objections to accepting the agenda as presented? Joe?
It's not an objection, but I cannot figure out how to put senator in front of my name. I don't see the box. I'm not familiar with WebEx. Is there a way
you
can simply explain how to do it?
Right click on your name and it will give you the option. Yeah.
Okay. That's all I needed to know. Sorry.
Were there any objections? Hearing no objections, I am calling the meeting to order, and we have an agenda. For those of you who attended the May meeting, are there any changes to the May meeting minutes? Are there any changes? Okay, hearing no changes. Is there a motion to accept the minutes?
Motion.
This is
to
Alan.
accept the minutes, that is.
Okay, we have a motion from Bonnie. Alan, can you be our second?
Yes.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. And here we go. It's going to become important that SEN be on your WebEx handle so that your vote counts.
I have 23 in favor.
Thank you very much. All right, folks. You know what? I can lower all hands, which is a fabulous new option in WebEx. Thank you. All right. Well, we are ready to get started, folks, and I'm really excited about the year ahead. This is our second year where we're going to do a little bit better than we did last year. And I think incremental progress is really our best bet for moving forward. Just some changes. I have asked senators to keep their cameras on during Senate, recognizing there may be brief periods when we all need to turn our cameras off, and we certainly don't object to that. But we are asking folks to turn your camera on during Senate. You are our senators, and our folks really want to see you representing them. We are also working to keep our meetings on track for 3 hours. And part of what that will mean is a change in the way we are doing business a little bit. One thing we're doing differently is all questions will be directed to the presiding officer. And then we will also, after a speaker, we will take all questions, and then the speaker will have the opportunity to respond. And then we'll have one more round of clarifying questions and a response, and then we'll move on. And this is really an effort to prevent us from sitting here for 4 hours. So I hope this works well. It's going to take us all a little bit of time to get used to that new process. I'm sure I will make mistakes, and I just ask all of us to be gracious as we all do the best that we can. I want to tell you a little bit about some of the things that I did representing CT State Senate this summer. I attended the Enrollment Management Summit as well as the Leadership Summit in July. Both were interesting and informative. And the Leadership Summit in particular was both a team building event and a solution focused event. And while I'm not sure we solved any problems in the room, we got started on solving the top 10 problems that were selected during the summit. We made a lot of progress, and hopefully President Meduco and Provost Heineck will have a little bit more to say about that. This summer, I also attended the board meeting that focused on the agenda, or excuse me, on the budget. And I shared the recommendations from our budget committee and advocated for funding for CT State. At the end of that meeting, Chair Gway approached me and asked to collaborate more with Senate. And on Tuesday, we toured Manchester and Capitol. And I want to thank Jen Natoli, Diane Hilliard, and Luz Londano. I hope I got that right, Luz. Your tour of Capitol really showed us the spirit, but also some of the gaps, and it was really helpful and useful. So thank you. Afterward, we went to Capitol Community College, and Ariel Robinson provided a robust tour of some of the new things that are on board for our students at Capitol this year, and that was also a really nice opportunity. So thank you, senators, for advocating for your campuses. If you didn't during this very busy time of the year watch the special board meeting on Wednesday, I encourage you to do so because the board chair directed President Meduco to restore student services at CT State. And before you get too excited, it comes with an ask from the regents. And that is, although reserves can be used for this first year, the changes have to be sustained. And I'm afraid what that means is more budget remediation before we even get started. And from my perspective, that's another big ask. But I am asking the Budget and Finance Committee, we don't have one yet, but we will soon. So think about this as you join committees. I am asking our Budget and Finance Committee to make recommendations to the Senate by the end of October, because President Meduco was asked to make his recommendations by November or in November. Additionally, this year, Curriculum Congress and the Senate have a joint assessment committee to assess the effectiveness of our current shared governance structure. So we'll be doing some work there. Originally, this was scheduled to launch at our October 11th summit, but we may need to adjust that date. So I'm waiting to see, to get confirmation. So I know I have been telling you to block it on your calendars since May, but it seems that date is in question. So that is still coming. So with that, I don't know how much time I have left, but if anybody has questions, I will take questions for just a moment. Okay, hearing no questions. President Meduco, welcome to Senate.
Yay, we're back. Good afternoon or good morning or good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. Professor Vandermark, I appreciate you. You did a lot of work in pounding the pavement over the course of the summer, but it's good to have our full complement of senators here today. I have some opening statements, and if there's time left, I'll definitely open the airways for questions. But for starters, good afternoon, senators. As we gather here today, I really want to warmly welcome each of you to our new academic year at CT State. And whether you are returning in your capacity or you are joining us for the first time, your service to the college, our colleagues, our students is invaluable. And it speaks volumes about your commitment to the mission and values that drive us forward. And I want to thank each of you sincerely for your dedication. As we embark on this second year together at CT State, we stand at a pivotal moment. The upcoming FY 26-27 biannual budget, coupled with new leadership on the Board of Regents, Board Chair Marty Gway, Board Vice Chair Juanita James, will present us with opportunities to tell our story, showcase our students, our faculty, our staff, our programs, but also highlight our critical funding and investment needs. These challenges and opportunities will require our collective effort and unwavering focus. Like y'all mentioned, over the course of the summer, we laid important groundwork to really kind of get us into this new academic year. Both the Enrollment Management Summit, which brought stakeholders across our campuses who work and lead and operate in our enrollment management departments to really kind of bring forward the pain points, the challenges in terms of what's making things difficult and how we need to alleviate those barriers to better support our students, but also to better support our colleagues, within and throughout enrollment management. I also led a leadership summit where we brought all managers, all management confidential individuals across CT State together, actually for the first time. So I think even pre-merger, I don't think there was, I don't think, just to my knowledge, based on what I've asked and learned, that even the legacy community colleges brought just all levels of management together in one room, to look at policy, to look at challenges, to look at opportunities. So I thought that was really significant. And we took 2 days, right? And there were difficult conversations. People were speaking the truth and bringing items to the attention of those in attendance. And we have to commit to not just what we've identified, but the actionable items and steps that we have to take moving forward. I think we have to act and be better in that space. So again, really looking forward to amplifying what our senators have brought to our attention from last year, what we'll continue to bring to our attention, but also in collaboration with all of our stakeholders across the college. Over the summer, I was just reflecting on the past academic year, right? In terms of what we did well, what we did good or so, and things that are just a disaster, And at the core of my reflection were our students and the challenges they face, not just as CT State College students, but really what people are facing in this country and really in our state. We know that inflation is a mother, right? We know there are rising costs. We know there are housing shortages. We know that there are utility bills that are just astronomical and unsustainable, right? So these things are impacting our students as well. And this really underscored the presentation I co-led back in the summer for the 119K Commission. This is a commission that's been charged by the municipalities of Connecticut to really address the 14 to 26-year-olds. And there's about 120,000 young people, right? So it's about 20% of all youth in Connecticut that are at risk of not graduating high school, or they are already disconnected from education and employment. And without significant and tangible intervention, many will become permanently dependent on the state and more susceptible to financial insecurity, substance abuse, crime, incarceration, homelessness, and death. Right. So there's a really huge opportunity as a state for us to address that. And I don't think there's anyone else in the state of Connecticut, at least in the higher ed space, that I think our K-12 partners are also serving this community that understands the plight of these young people, but really our students, their stories, their situations, their lived experiences. Right. I think there's an opportunity for us to really be at the table to really address these needs. I want to kind of update on some key leadership changes and initiatives. So we have new board chair, new board vice chair. He set forth 3 pillars of expectations for CSCU as the entire system, this ACT. So 3 pillars of ACT, which is action, completion, and talent. Really gave charge to system-wide leadership in the member institutions in terms of his expectations for all of us. I encourage all of you to watch the recent recording of the special board meeting that took place earlier this week on August 28th for fuller understanding. Notably, the resolution to not only restore student services, so we have some work to do to figure out a plan forward, but also too, the board chair tasked me to lead a CSCU-wide healthcare task force, right? Healthcare is king or queen, our biggest sector in this state. I think there's an opportunity for us to leverage our full complement of institutions and programming and faculty and staff and experts for the needs of healthcare across the state of Connecticut. So really looking forward to that. Additionally, we will be hosting upcoming town halls across our campuses this fall, right? To really engage, really connect, really learn and listen, and discuss the challenges and opportunities by campus. I'm really looking forward to that. We have some leadership searches currently taking place. So there's a permanent CEO for CT State Gateway. We are wrapping up the search for the Vice President of Human Resources at CT State because the goal is to hire that position this fall and to establish human resources here at CT State by the end of the calendar year. We're searching for a permanent VP of Enrollment Management, and our new Chief of Staff, Tom Yelich, will be starting next Friday, right, to really bring fresh energy and perspective. I also want to mention that we are working on a State of the College live broadcast. Hopefully within the next 2 weeks, it will be recorded, but to really kind of speak to the things that we accomplished, last academic year and what we have ahead of us. I really want to make sure that we get that at this stage of the academic year before we are in the dog days of the fall semester. And to wrap up my comments, recently on Wednesday, I visited Cupertino, California. I can't say the company I visited, but if you just Google Cupertino, California, there's just going to be a symbol that pops up. But I had the privilege of joining other community college presidents from across the country for the efforts of the Association of Community College Trustees. And this organization really wanted to speak to the 2-year community college sector. And I felt like I was on like the Star Trek Enterprise. Like, it was insane. So there are a lot of potential innovations I think we can bring in partnership with this organization that's global here in Connecticut. And they're really chomping at the bit because they recognize our complexity, but our diversity, but also our strengths. So I'm really looking forward to that. And then lastly, as we move forward, I really encourage by the strong gains we're seeing in our enrollment numbers. So we are up year over year, and we need to lock down those numbers by census. So again, it's due to the hard work of all of you and all of our colleagues across the college. And in closing, I really want to reiterate my deep appreciation for the sacrifices and commitments to our college senate and also to your colleagues in the curricular congress to make our college, make each other and our institution better, right? All of you are servant leaders, really respect you. And I really believe that together we can navigate all challenges, but also seize the opportunities that lie ahead. So again, really kudos to all of you. And I'm looking forward to, to your counsel, to your leadership, and to doing what it takes to stabilize and build and help this institution thrive. So thank you.
Thank you, President Meduco, for all you're doing. For those of you who didn't Google Cupertino, because he gave us the same line at the board meeting, Apple's really big there. He didn't say it, I said it. Maybe something else is happening in that world, but there you go. All right, folks, I would like to add, if you have any questions, please raise your hand, and I'm going to take all the questions, and then I'll ask President Meduco to respond afterward, once we know all the questions. President Meduco, you're only getting this free pass because it's the first meeting, right? You know that this will change.
No, I'm sure there's audio issues and tech issues because I know people are chomping at the bit, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it nonetheless. So thank you.
All right, very good. All right, with that, we will go ahead and move into the CT State leadership updates. And I would like to welcome Interim Provost Karen Heineck. Congratulations. And what do you have for us today?
I have a couple of updates that I just want to make sure everybody's aware, and thank you again, everyone, for allowing me to be here. First, I want to make sure that everybody knows we will have a new framework for program review coming out shortly, in which we are making sure that this year's program review cycle will only include programs that exist at one campus, because we still have work to do on our collective bargaining agreement to have a framework on how to do multi-campus review. So I know that Dr. Cullen is working diligently along with the school deans on getting that document ready. I anticipate that it'll come out the first week in September. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of that. Secondly, in regards to Al's comment on the Leadership Summit, there were 2 action items that came out of that directly impact the Provost's office. One of which is that I will be leading an online council this year. And I will be working back with Al and with Jason to figure out the composition to ensure that shared governance is part of the conversation. but we do need to be looking at online education programmatically as well as our services and working together to figure out what that looks like now that we are one college. I also want to thank Ryan Pearson for his work. I just learned this morning that our NC SARA application was accepted, and that means we are allowed to continue to offer programming online. I also want to make you aware that one of the action items was to be looking at all of our councils and committees that are operational, not shared governance based, and to be looking at how often they meet, what the cadence of those meetings are, as well as what the composition of those committees are, to ensure that we are able to utilize the committees to move things forward. So we'll be taking a look at all of our committees this year and making a suggestion around their meeting schedule, cadence, and membership. And that's coming out of that leadership summit. As you may recall, last year, I came and I talked about a new proposed dual enrollment policy that is expected to go to the board in October. There are also 5 regional summits that I want to make sure that the committee is aware are happening with our local school districts in September and October. So if you have availability and are interested, those are on September 25th at Asnuntuck, October 1st at Capitol, October 2nd at Gateway, October 3rd at Three Rivers, and October 9th at Tunxus. And that's really trying to work back with our school districts to ensure that we are meeting the new compliance areas, especially as it pertains to faculty credentialing, and making sure that we are looking at moving towards NACEP certification with concurrent enrollment, but also balancing that with helping districts to know that they can utilize our faculty and opportunities to be on campus with dual enrollment. As President Maduco mentioned, we will be working on town halls. All 12 campuses will have town halls that will take place this fall. And this will also be an opportunity where our school deans will accompany me and have conversations with our faculty in regards to making sure that we're ready for our SLOs and that we're doing more in programmatic marketing. That will be happening this year. So I know that that's welcome news to many of you who've been looking to hear more about how we can market our programs. That will be happening this year, and that will be in concert with our school deans. For NETCHI, I just want to make sure that you're all aware that we have a focus report that is due and a focus visit that's happening April 6th to 9th, in which all of our campuses will be visited. There are 5 areas of focus. The first one is in assessment. The second area is in dual enrollment. The third area is in shared governance. The fourth area is in ACME. And the 5th area is in budget mitigation. We have had subgroups meeting this summer, and that is being led by President Rook as well as with JD Matheson. So thank you both for your help, as well as President Chakowski. And that is all for my updates at this moment in time. I'm more than willing to take questions.
Thank you, Provost Heineck. All right. Bonnie, I see you have a question, and then Nicola.
Good afternoon, Provost Heineck. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bonnie Sullivan. I'm over at Asnuntuck. I'm the instructional designer, educational technology lead campus coordinator here. I have a question in regard, 2 questions to be honest with you. One is, we had iTeach for our instructors as part of, especially for online teaching, but also for instructors who are going to be teaching hybrids. That has been on hold for a significant amount of time. And since the majority of our courses have gone now to online, where is that in the process? Are we going to come back to that particular instruction, that professional development for instructors? And a question mark for that one. The second part of that question is, since many of our students are also taking online classes, we're not supporting their online transitioning to Blackboard and in that capacity. Are we also going to be looking at how can we ensure the success of our students moving to complete online learning or hybrid or flex Orientation is great, but the orientation does not include anything about how to engage in Blackboard for their success of their online courses. So I'm hoping that we can hear more about, whether it be now or later, where are we moving in that area? Thank you.
Thank you, Bonnie. Nick, your question?
Hi, Provost Heineck, thank you for being here. My question is pertaining to the statement when you said that there will be a body looking at all of the committees and reviewing their membership and their meeting days and times. What information do you hope to, or actionable items do you hope to glean from that review?
And those are the only two questions. So Provost Heineck, if you could respond, thank you.
Sure. So first off, thank you, Bonnie. I think your question is really timely, and that's the reason for the online council. We certainly need to ensure the quality of our instruction and the support of our faculty who are teaching online and hybrid, knowing that 30% of our students are now fully taking all of their classes online and 65% of our students are taking at least one class. So I'm hoping that this year's council will be able to help guide me in what we need to do moving forward to make sure that we're supporting our learners as well as our faculty and online. And this is a mission critical aspect. That's why I think at the Leadership Summit, they wanted such a focus on this particular area. And I would really encourage you, if you have interest in joining that council, once I've framed what that membership needs to look like after I've talked with Elle and with Jason, if that makes sense. But I am just learning about the iTeach piece being put on hold. I understand that that had to do with ARPA funding. I get a number of those aspects. At the same point in time, ensuring the quality of our instruction is paramount and support for our students. So I think hopefully that answers you, Bonnie, and you can let me know, and we can also have a side conversation if you need to directly. And Nicola, thank you for your question. I think the committee piece is really just ensuring that our meetings are fruitful and that they are accomplishing what we need them to. So oftentimes I'll use an example of our dean schedule. This year, becoming the provost, I learned that our deans were meeting every week, multiple times a week. How do we ensure that those meetings are successful and that they have the right composition and that we are framing those conversations as needed? So the committee reports are just even getting a list of all the active committees that exist. Who are the members? How often are they meeting? What's their charge? That's really what we're looking to do to make things more effective and efficient. We also heard that there are times in which councils are meeting, but they don't know how to bring concerns forward to cabinet or to other decision makers. So that's part of the work that we're going to try to do this year. Thank you for the question.
All right. Sandy, I've seen your hand go up and down. Did you have a follow-up question?
I did. Provost Heineck, I'm Sandra Vitale, and I work in financial aid at Tunxus. I'm part of the enrollment management team here. And regarding online support for students, I'm seeing quite a bit of students that their communication skills are not very strong, and we're having a hard time helping them if they don't have someone with them that speaks English. And this has grown since I've been in the state, probably 27 years. And this is the most diverse group that I've worked with. It could take us up to over 2 to 3 hours to help them with the FAFSA. And, I only have 4 staff. So I really think going forward, if that could be talked about, how we're supposed to handle and help these students. And there was one other thing that I forgot right now, but that's really the biggest thing I see these days.
Are there any other clarifying questions before we? Okay, it's yours to wrap up, Provost.
Thank you. I think that this is naturally something that we need to be talking about in the online conversation with the committee. So again, I encourage you to join that conversation.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Provost Heineck. We're moving on to John Paul.
Hello, how are you doing today? Can people hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. And my presentation will be very short. I'm bringing you an update and next steps for the climate work that we embarked on last semester. And so really we're trying to just make sure that everybody is fully versed of what we're doing, so you can get involved at any level or place that you want to in the process. Just to start, this is also a call to action or a call for you all to consider serving on some of the DEI committees, at least for this semester at the campus level. And the reason I'm asking for that directly is because we really want people at that campus level who can help us discern and work through the process in order to get to a place or a college where everybody has a sense of belonging. Right? And the other part of this is also that we are actively trying to figure out what our culture will be in the future, right? Not only at the local level, at the campus level, which, you know, is going through its own transitions. The consolidation broke a bunch of stuff. And so as leaders, we're trying to figure out from you all, how should we really work on issues of DEI? So really looking at the culture. Now let's talk specifically about what has already happened in the DEI process, which is last semester we began our campus climate process by sending out a series of surveys, faculty, staff, and students, really looking at how people thought about and looked at CT state. Now, let's be very clear about what this survey measures. It doesn't measure everything in their dog. It really measures a sense of belonging in our institution. Now, we did pretty well at picking up data. However, there's certain groups, and one of the groups that really did not fill out the survey for many different reasons. Some really based on distrust that has been widening at some levels, and now it's starting to narrow again. Faculty and staff really see the merger itself and other things. And so we were able to capture some of that. And because of that distrust, that idea of trust that has to be rebuilt within our institution, we are really leaning into a process that will be as transparent as possible without revealing specific data that would out people in the answers that they gave. Okay? That process actually begins next week. And so I wanted to get here before we begin all the process to be able to talk about it and look at the next two steps. The next two steps, by the way, which will happen this fall, one is we will be turning the data back around to the campuses and for CT State as a whole, thinking that idea that I talked about last time, placing a mirror. By the way, one of the beautiful things about the place and time that we are, since we are founders of this college, right? We are brand new into this work. And I'm just talking about CT State. I'm not dismissing the old history of what we are, but we are really a new institution. As we get to create these things, we get to look under the dashboard, look at the engine, kick the tires in order to decide how we want our institution to run. And so to that effect, this is really baseline data that we're collecting. And we collected three types of data that will be presented for the work of doing the climate work at the institution. Those pieces of data are, of course, the results from the survey, the climate survey did. Our achievement gap, which I actually prefer calling opportunity gap data, right? We have inequity within our system, and our civil rights data, which really tells us what types of complaint and how people are fearing. Now, please think of this data as a point in time. This was a particular point in time when we had this information. So the data is not necessarily reflective or truthful about everything that's happening in your campus, but it sure as heck gives us some red flags that we can kind of lean into and be able to learn from, and then to be able to discuss and be strategic about moving things forward. The strategic is really important part for me because in DEI, shotgun approach is rarely one. Okay, so we really have to look at and measure what we're working in. So I tell you all of this in order to really hopefully recruit you to consider being as faculty and staff on those local and those campus level committees that really are helping unfold this. The second thing I want to say very quickly is that to me, this is pre-work that really will go into our strategic plan, right? Collecting this information from you all, and having your voices, reflecting the data that we have, using that whole idea for those of you who are qualitative and mixed methods researchers. If you're a quantitative researcher, I'm not speaking your language right now, is that we're doing member checks. We're going back and now to validate the data, to really look at the validation if the data is truthful. We present it to you all. So you all as campus communities can decide what the data means, right? And so that's a really important part. But we cannot do that if you as faculty and staff are not involved. We cannot get your voice and really get the true story out of the data if we don't use it. So in order to facilitate all of this, and by the way, thank you to your wonderful president and chair who helped me kind of line up some of the doubts and understand some of the things that the Senate itself is looking at. We have modified the service and the approach, and we are putting out a lot of information starting next week about what is the initiative, how the initiative will go. That includes videos, that includes creating a site where all the data would be that will be accessible to any faculty and staff at CT State and a selected number of students. Much of that is going to be happening. So I'm not going to talk today about the internal process of that because there will be a lot of work that will be happening next few weeks around that and how we're going to display the data, and there will be videos that you can watch just in time for whatever you need or want to do and how you want to be involved. Okay. We've also created multiple supports. We brought in Achieving the Dream, which will specifically provide support for campuses around their own data when it comes to the opportunity gap, what other people call the achievement gap. We have a new campus climate person who's coming on board along with the DEI teams to really look at the climate set of data, provide support and help campuses distill and understand what that data is. And
excuse me, John Paul.
All right.
This is Joe Salvaggio, just reminding you, you have about 30 seconds left.
Perfect. Then that is perfect timing then. And so I will just say then we will give you that information. The last piece of information I wanted to give you is really kind of a very quick understanding that we're making progress in this area and that it's been a wonderful opportunity to work with CT State in this area and to announce internally. Please don't share this externally yet. It's okay if it's public information, but do not, we don't want to get in front of the marketing campaign that our partners are doing on this. And I'm putting in the chat building link to an award that just has been granted to CT State. We have been nationally recognized because of the type of foundational work we're doing in order to make sure that equity, diversity, inclusion, accessibility, and issues like that are centered to our strategic work in the future. This was a surprise to me in many ways that we received this award, but it's really a recognition, not of the work of my office, because nobody owns this work at CT State. It's all of our work. It's in our mission. It is in our statements. It is in our bill, and it will be in our strategic plan. So this is really an award for you all who are the faculty and staff who really make the work every day. And I just wanted to make sure that we recognize that it's your work that really to be one of the groups in the United States right now which is being recognized for their excellence in this area. Thank you so much. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, John Paul. All right, folks. So again, I'm going to ask for questions. Once we have all the questions, John Paul will be given the opportunity to respond. The first hand I saw was Alan and then Michelle. Alan?
Thank you, John Paul. Nice to see you again. I didn't hear clearly, so I just wanted a clarification on which group you said did not participate actively in the survey? Was that faculty and staff?
Nope,
And if so,
staff named.
are you able to say like what percentage did participate?
It
you.
depends on campus, and I'm just gonna be blunt. There were certain campus where the distrust
John
was
Paul?
so.
John
Yeah.
Paul, can we wait for the second question and then I'm going to give you the opportunity. Michelle?
Thank you. Hi, John Paul. My name is Michelle Giannakopoulos. I'm an English professor at Tunxis. And I had a question about DEI efforts in setting that one college campus moving forward in terms of celebrating our campus-wide diversity for faculty, staff, and students when it comes to celebrations and things that are put out both on campus, but also system-wide in recognizing important events like Indigenous Peoples Month, Women's History, Black History, etc. One of the things that I'm noticing is that our system, in addition to many individual campuses, fell silent during May's AAPI month this past year. And I'm looking to see if your office is leading any efforts to make sure that as a system, we are consistently recognizing that all of the identities in our communities are recognized across the board and not just in pockets. Thank you.
Thank you.
let
All
me
right,
start-
John Paul. Now let's try it one more time.
Yeah, let me start with the last question first. And this one is one I have to give credit to Dr. Meduco. Dr. Meduco is the one who's led the charge of us both figuring out what each one of our campuses really should be celebrating and when and how we should do it in a way that really, as a community, because we don't all have to do everything all the time, right? So which ones would be in these? And we are working through that. I would be neglectful if I didn't say that the biggest players in this are the DEI or equity coordinators from each one of your campuses. And so the way that we're managing this is they're figuring out what they're focal, what they want to be known for, and they're bringing that up. Our annual report, by the way, which will be released next week with kind of all the activities that we've done, takes that into account, that it's really that the engines of the work are at the campus level. And so we see our role much more as supporting, as helping highlight, profile things that are happening in one campus so other campuses can participate and be part of that, and to coordinate also the schedule, right? Because we have wonderful folks who are interested in different things across their system. Now, that's the kind of the first response. To the second response on the climate survey issue that put in, the worst representation that we had were from specific campuses. And there were faculty who, quite plainly and honestly, if I'm going to say it, distrusted the instrument, right? There was a belief out there that got circulated out there that we had a way at CT State of digging into the data and figure out what we said. Not only did we not do that, we actually set up all kinds of mechanisms to not allow that to happen. And I can talk about that for a few hours if you want, but what we're trying to do with this effort is to show you that we are really interested in being transparent about the data and the work when it comes to creating our own culture as a new institution. Whatever that wonderful culture is going to be in the future, we really wanted to have your voices be at the center of that. And that, again, comes from our president.
All right, thank you, John Paul. And President Meduco, you didn't ask earlier. That's all right. You've got about a minute, sir.
Yeah, real quickly. Senator Giannakopoulos, I think your question, and hopefully I didn't butcher your last name, but in terms of all of the celebrations for all of the identities that are represented here at CT State, I think we welcome an opportunity to engage and figure out how do we maybe compile an inventory of set identities. How do we work with the affinity groups that we already have, right? So we launched I think it was the Arab and Muslim affinity group last semester. So how do we tap into that, right? And leverage the lived experiences and identities of folks to say, how do we do this? Not just saying, Happy Black History Month, right? And then it goes away, but the level of programming, right? the level of engagement in our communities, but also the engagement with our stakeholders, both students and employees. So I really want to kind of follow up with you, right? And Dr. Shazon Cardenas, and, you know, and make sure we do justice to make sure people don't feel neglected and omitted in terms of our expression externally. So thank you so much for calling that out. And we have to be better. And I apologize on behalf of the college that we didn't do that. So, you know, again, we have to be better. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, seeing no more questions, we're going to go on to move to our third item, and that's Mike Stefanowicz talking about the winter and spring schedule and other related updates. Mike, are you here?
I am here. Hello. Can
Hello.
you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, great. It's so nice to see everybody, see so many familiar faces, some older and some newer. So it's exciting that everybody's back working. So I just asked to have a time-sensitive update for all of you regarding our schedule build, which will commence on Tuesday after the holiday weekend. I tried to upload a file with a timeline. Hopefully that came through. I've also asked that it be shared and emailed out. So quick update on the fall schedule. For those of you who were on Senate last year, you'll remember that a number of recommendations were forwarded from a scheduling task force led by Angelo Glaviano, I hope I said that right, and others. And we've taken many of those into account. But I know people were interested in data, so I just wanted to share that I think we've become more efficient at scheduling. This fall, we've only rescheduled 98 course sections compared to 200 last fall. And we've canceled 677 sections compared to 1,086 last fall. So that is all good news. Obviously, it can be disruptive to reschedule or cancel a section. Also, our fill rate is up. We're at about an 82% fill rate compared to 80% last fall, which means that we're being more efficient with our scheduling and our seats. So the changes that have been made, a lot of the feedback that we got was that scheduling in the past had been done perhaps more in isolation and was campus-based, and that we needed to try to figure out a way to make it more global, to have the folks look at the college schedule overall, and that we could build in a process where statewide or college-wide disciplines might review the schedule. So that's what we did. Luckily, we're instituting a new software program called CourseLeaf. You may have read about that in the Provost Perspective. I will post that for folks to look at in the chat as well. CourseLeaf is really a bridge between Banner and EMS, and it provides an easier way for everybody to schedule. For anyone who's worked off of individual spreadsheets that are being emailed around with your campus scheduler, you know the complications that all can involve. So what we will do on Tuesday is Ryan Pearson and his scheduling team have prepared from CourseLeaf scheduling spreadsheets. Rather than having them by campus, they will be by school area or school. So an example, if I can just quickly share, is, let's see, if folks are seeing the spreadsheet on my screen. This is a sample of the spreadsheet that will be sent out for the School of Social and Behavioral Sciences. And you can see that it has much of the same information we've had before, you know, the course title, the section, but it's all campuses, can be sorted by campus. If folks just want to look at what's scheduled on their campus, they can do that. There's sort functions. There's instructional method. There's some other fields related to Banner, like is it viewable on the web? Is it credit or non-credit? And this is a draft. And I know that this is small fonts, but I wanted to show one item which is very helpful, which is CourseLeaf is able to provide us, and Ryan has built a conditional formatting to show the prior fill rate for a course. So you can see, for instance, you know, that maybe there was a course, not to pick on anybody, but this course here only had a 50% fill rate. And by looking statewide or college-wide, you can see, you know, If that's a traditional class, maybe that's fine. But if it was an online class and there were other online sections, maybe that course wasn't needed. Maybe we had too much capacity in that area. And maybe those students could have taken an online seat somewhere else. So, so this is very powerful information. This will be shared with each, I'm going to try to stop sharing now. This will be shared with each campus course scheduler and academic dean. It also has instructor, the room, the meeting time, any comments. Very powerful, very, very nicely organized. Similar to what we've shared before, however, before they were extracts out of Banner and didn't have quite the capability we have now. So those will go out Tuesday, and we've moved that up a week. And specifically, we moved it up a week so that there was an opportunity for disciplines to meet statewide or college-wide to discuss the schedule and make recommendations. The timeline is that the trainings will occur, and in the document I uploaded, it talks about the trainings for the campus schedulers, because they will be making changes in CourseLeaf, not in Banner. It's actually easier, more intuitive, and more powerful. And then once those changes are made, they bridge to both Banner for the registration information and to EMS, which is the room scheduling information. So that will begin, well, the schedule will be out and distributed starting Tuesday through your campus schedulers and your academic deans. And then the scheduling, the training occurs, and by September 24th is when we're asking for the campus schedulers to begin building the schedule. Everything has to be finalized by October 11th. And that's because the scheduling team in New Britain needs to do some behind the scene things like making, you know, course totals common, double checking room assignments. They do a number of things behind the scenes so that then that can go live and be public for registration. And again, all that's in the document I shared. So I think that's a really a great opportunity for folks to look at the schedule more holistically. And I think that may wrap up my my report. I'm going to paste in the chat the items from the provost's perspective in case folks didn't see that when that came out in August. And it's just some general information about kind of CourseLeaf and how we're using it. And now I'm ready to take questions. Yep.
All right, thank you, Mike. And just so folks know, the information Mike referenced is in the folder on SharePoint for this meeting. So you do have that meeting, that information available. And Asantwa, so our order of questions will be Asantwa, Bonnie, Alan, Topher, and
Hi.
And Riyadh.
I wanted to talk about a concern that came up at our faculty meeting, that in some of the work groups, they sort of had agreed on scheduling and the courses they were going to offer on their campuses. Yet, as the semester approached, certain campuses added more like online versions of these courses, which made basically affected the enrollment of the courses on our campus, making them have to be canceled. Where in those work groups, so in the your area work group, you know, specifically to your discipline, they had made these agreements, but somebody reneged and opened many sections of the course. So how do we sort of work on that not happening again?
thank you, Asantwa. Bonnie?
So I'm not sure my question can be answered, but I'm wondering if it's something that can be considered, because what we end up finding at our campus is we often don't have enough classes in English and math and CCS and things like that. So is there any way, I don't know how you capture information on classes that we know we need more of, but is there a way to look at all those that filled, like, you know, all the sections were filled, so that probably means you need more or something like that?
Good question, Bonnie. Alan?
Yes, thank you. Hi, Mike. I think if you recall from this, if not the May, then one of the last Senate meetings in the spring, this is also a concern on my campus. we wanted to request when students do a search for classes that that somehow they be directed to classes on their home campus initially. Those are the ones that show up. Now, obviously, if they're taking an on-ground class, probably that's what they're going to look for. But if they're looking for online classes, then certain campuses seem to show up first all the time. And that, puts other campuses at a disadvantage. So has there been any progress on getting Banner to do that kind of filtering? That's my question. Thank you.
That was a discussion about home campus search, Alan. And it will continue. Quinebaug Valley is currently reviewing that, just so you're aware.
Yes.
Topher.
My question had to do with the column you had about the fill rates. I'm curious if those are populated from just like one previous semester, meaning like spring to spring, and like spring of 24 is going to fill right into the spring of 25 one, or from fall to spring, or if there's multiple, like if they're aggregated fill rates from several semesters, and if so, how many? So like what's really behind that? And then how do you take into account the fact that sometimes the CRN number just changes, so they're going to have a fill rate of 0, even though it's the same course that was taught with a different CRN.
Thank you, Topher. And Riaz, sorry about that. Your hand was showing and then not showing, so I wasn't sure if it was up. Riaz, you're our last one to speak. Oh, you're on mute, my friend.
Thank you so much. Just a couple of comments. First of all, not so much scheduling, but academic calendar. I think we would be very appreciative if we could publish academic calendars in advance, because we have students who want to plan what they're doing for things like spring break, doing service learning, all kinds of activities, and flights and things of that nature book up quickly, and the price goes up stratospherically the closer you get. So we've historically published the spring calendar well in the, it would be up already. But in terms of scheduling classes, I want to reiterate the comment that was made previously about not having sufficient numbers of classes, and in particular, the difficulty of actually quantifying that. So Norwalk has a demographic that has historically registered late. We get an immense number of people that show up the weekend before classes, the week before classes, and it doesn't seem particularly equitable that when they show up, they're finding that every single slot on a math and English class is already taken up. So I teach statistics. We had 100% fill rates, not just for the classes that start in August, but the late start classes as well. And every single class was filled up. And so what we end up with is we have this slew of students who come in through the door for open advising, who desperately want to enroll with CT State. And we tell them, sorry, you don't have a slot in math, you don't have a slot in English. Too often, it's a co-rec or a pre-rec for another class. So that physics course that they wanted to take, they can't take that either. And you try and talk them into maybe doing an online class somewhere else. It's difficult to do a in-person class at another campus. They could probably do Housatonic if they're Norwalk-centric, but it starts getting difficult. And what happened this semester, and has been happening for the last several semesters, is that these kids get frustrated, they shrug, raise their hands, they walk out. And these are really kids who are desirous of improving the quality of their life. And we're telling them, sorry, we don't have a spot for you. And I don't know how you can measure that. So I think that's the issue you need to deal with.
Thank you, Riaz. Mike, you have several different questions there. Were you able to take a note on them?
I sure was. Yep. So I'll try to give some quick answers, and then hopefully we'll have time for some more answers. Academic calendars have been determined through 2028, Riaz. It's nice to see you again. Hi. And I put a link in the chat. That was a system-wide scheduling committee for both universities and community colleges. So hopefully that would answer that. Fill rates are from just the previous fall. To answer that question, I think it was Toffer who asked. Because going back, it's harder to combine those when we were 12 institutions and we had a different version of Banner. So currently we just go look at last fall and look at this fall. And that's what is rolled over. So when you get the spreadsheet, it would have last winter's enrollment and last spring's enrollment. That's what we're going to be sharing. To Alan's point, Banner does not have the capability to just show online courses for the student's home campus. That is not a built-in. So there's two parts to that question. One is, can it do it? The second is, should it do it? And I'm not sure we have consensus that we should do that if we could do that. So I think that's a further discussion. You can certainly search by campus. The first box when you go in to search for courses is a campus search. But that would involve a customization that we would have to pay Ellucian to do. We have not gotten a quote on that because I wasn't sure we were determined that we wanted to do that. So that's a quick answer on that. The other items, whether it's work groups who have decided on courses and then campuses have added them, whether it's not having enough English sections or math sections, whether it's canceling courses and then there's no room the last week. Those are really local campus decisions to many aspects. We make recommendations, and the school area deans have looked at a schedule overview and made recommendations. But local control is still there for each campus. So how many English courses Norwalk offers is up to Norwalk and up to the chairs of Norwalk, and they do their best and have the experience of trying to predict and project what can be offered. Now, the area we've worked more closely in is online, because we did find, for instance, in the summer and in past semesters, that we may have scheduled too many online sections, and we may have ended up with 2 sections at 12 instead of 1 section at 24. That's not efficient. That's not the best use of our money when that adjunct money or that full-time money could go towards tutoring or cafeteria or library services or other things. We need to be as efficient as we can. So to those points about whether those students are coming in, enrollment management is a complex item. And I think people do their best at both the college office and at the campuses to try to predict what's needed. We certainly don't want to send people to another campus for a course if your courses are full, but there are also budget limitations. And there's a part-time lecturer budget, and there's a workload budget that people have. So a lot of moving parts, I guess, would be my answer on that. But I just want to explain that it is a collaboration, both scheduling and enrollment between system office, but much of those are local decisions. Just like the decision on who's teaching what in what area is up to the department chairs and your local deans. That is not being managed out of New Britain. I hope I answered each question. I don't know if I did, and if I didn't.
If you didn't, we have an opportunity for follow-up questions.
Great, thanks.
So today I'm going to go ahead and take questions from Hannah and Bonnie, but folks, I hope your questions are clarifying questions, because we're really trying not to do 2 rounds of questions, but the second opportunity is to clarify something that was already said. So Hannah and then Bonnie, and we are running over, so I'm going to ask you to be very brief.
I'm hoping it's clarifying. I'll be very, very brief. One thing that happened this summer was that course caps were raised. So that had an impact, and they were raised, I think, in central office. I think for various reasons, but that has also an impact then on scheduling and so on and so forth. Will there be negotiation? Will we know what the course caps are when we start into doing those schedules? So are they going to be volatile?
Bonnie?
I don't know if it's clarifying, but just the issue in regards to, are we going to be looking at how campuses are competing against each other in courses that are listed and canceled? I think that's something also that we need to be looking at and considering as we move forward.
Thank you. All right, Mike, wrap this up quickly.
Sure. So just real quickly, we do have consistent course caps across the college. And that, I think that would probably be a NETU requirement, if nothing else. Some campuses may have had lower caps for some reason scheduled in the summer. So if court caps were raised, that was only to make them consistent with what was offered elsewhere. If caps are raised above the recommended limit, that would have been a local decision, Hannah. So I don't know the details, but I'll just speak to that. But the question of competition, or, you know, if we're going to add an online course, which campus gets to do that, or campuses adding more online sections, more than the work group had agreed to, I think those are more difficult discussions that we will probably take up at the Dean's Council. I can't speak for the provost, but I'm sure she's taking notes and I'm taking notes, and knowing Karen, she's very in tune to that, and we will look at that. So hope that wraps that up. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, folks. It turned out that the only item of old business that we had was bringing back the issue of drop for non-payment, which
on
is
Vernon Pediatrics at Starling Physicians, located at 357 Hartford Turnpike in Vernon.
Okay. I'm going to, there we go. What was resurrecting the issue of drop for non-payment. And that's partially to make sure that folks know that this is an issue that will be continuing with our staff council. But with that said, I have asked I have asked Roberta to give us an update on some of what we saw so far this year, just so that the Senate is aware, and then we will take any questions that you have. So Roberta?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much. I appreciate the moment to share an update. So one of the areas that the Professional Council of Staff under John Ferrio's leadership took on, as you know, was working with the enrollment management team at CT State about the drop for non-payment list. I definitely want to recognize the work that was done to streamline the process, especially among the CT State leadership. They worked really hard to come up with ways that would help streamline processes, that would remove barriers to students, and that would provide timely information to the campuses, as well as give us ample notification of when those lists would be coming to us for planning purposes. However, unfortunately, there are still, as we expected, there would still be some issues with the DNP process during this enrollment period. And so some of those that have negatively impacted students is like the list needs to be more thoroughly vetted, we think, prior to being released to the campuses. There doesn't seem to be enough time given for offices to vet the list, such as financial aid and Veterans Affairs, advising and whatnot. And so that limits the time that we have to contact those students, and more so the time that students have to act one last time to make their payments or take care of their financial aid discrepancies. And then there's some inaccuracies of the list that we've seen as a problem, such as dropping students that have already paid or that do have financial aid, but there might be just a slight variant in their verification process, which, as we know, does have a negative impact on the students, especially if they've made payment and they get dropped from their classes. Then that builds distrust to the advisors or whoever was contacting the student, and just overall, we want to avoid that at all costs. And then some limited communication as to who to contact if people were mistakenly put on the list and how to get that done, other than to say contact the campus bursar or your dean and they'll put a note on it. But in many cases, some of the campuses have reported that students were still dropped even though there was a notation on their account. So we want to just make sure that we are being really careful in that process. CPUS students are also on the same list, and those students require more than just a simple phone call to remind them to make a payment, and then there's not enough time to act to take care of those issues. So we fully recognize that some of the issues that are due to student response or inaction. However, for our first generation minority students, we really need to anticipate those issues, which is one of the reasons that we make those DNP calls to begin with. So that said, the Professional Council of Staff will continue to collaborate with executive leadership, including enrollment management, finance, as well as our campus-based stakeholders, to really work, or I should say, continue to work on the recommendations and refining the processes that we had started last semester. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Roberta. I really appreciate you summarizing this, especially given that we have a new Senate and there is a learning curve with drop for new payment. This is a really complex issue. So thank you for the summary. The other thing I want to say to folks is Board of Regents Chair Gway's ask to CSCU is more vibrant, more shared governance. I'm not going to say vibrant because I don't think we saw a whole lot of that in the previous administrations, but really leaning in. And again, if you haven't watched that meeting, I know that that's a lot of fun, but this meeting is one that is well worth watching. He's leaning into shared governance. He is asking to collaborate with us. And I think that if our drop for non-payment, some of those issues are related to board policy, that we can share that with them. So I want to remind you and ask you to keep that in mind as you and the staff council do that work with the staff council. So thank you. All right, going to hands. Where are we? Hannah and then Alan.
So thank you, first of all, for the presentation and also for sending those lists that are absolutely crucial. We're working with them and it helps us to get a lot of students back. You already mentioned particular minority students that are dear to us, and I wonder if there's any way we can find a way to enter a hole for not dropping them, and those are particularly refugee students on humanitarian parole. They have the ability to file for financial aid, but it's a process where it goes back and forth to the State Department, can take up to 40 days to process that. Right now, there is a huge influx of such students from Haiti and from Ukraine still going on. A lot of those students made one, even two payments, which is very difficult for them because they receive something like $460 per month or something like that. But then some of them were still dropped for non-payment. I wonder if particularly for that group, there would be a way to enter something to just hold off and give them a chance to stay in until their eligibility can be verified by the State Department. My understanding is that there was an issue to even upload their forms between May and July. So we would be grateful if something could be done about that.
Okay, thank you. And Alan?
Thanks, Elle. Roberta, would you say that probably the first step to addressing, I know you outlined a number of issues, but the first step would be simply to provide more time, more turnaround time from when the lists are issued to sort of resolve issues, give students an opportunity to respond, etc. Would that go a long way towards addressing some of these issues?
Thank you, Alan. And the last hand, folks, please make sure you raise your hands if you have questions. The last hand is Nicola. Nick?
Thank you. One other question, or I guess issue, is that when students are getting paid or dropped for non-payment in full classes, they lose that spot, and then someone else will come in and take that class, and then they are now unable, once they get everything figured out, they are unable to get back into that class that they had originally signed up for. That can throw their entire schedule completely out of whack, because now either they can't get that course that they needed for either their degree and proper progression towards success of that degree, or the other classes that they need just don't line up with when this new class is now available. So I think that is something else that needs to be taken under consideration for this, because there's some classes you just cannot over enroll, like, a lab science course. We are constrained by our lab safety requirements that we just can't have extra bodies in there. Thank you.
All right. You've got some questions, Roberta.
Okay, I think I have them all. Thank you. Hannah, I would say, first, I was unaware that some of our refugee students had such an extensive process in order to access financial aid. So thank you for sharing that. I think that it is certainly going to require a conversation between the council and campus leadership about, and our CT state leadership about what we can and cannot do, and to make sure that we're being fair and equal across the board, and what our data provides, so we even know how these students are identified and banner and that sort of thing. So I'm going to add it to the list of things to discuss. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. Alan, I would absolutely agree that turnaround time is essential. I know myself and a few of my colleagues were making calls over the last 3 nights just after hours, just trying to get as many calls to students as possible. And in many ways, it just didn't matter because they couldn't take care of it as quickly as they needed to. And then I would say, secondly, it would be like some of the vetting that I think we could still take a look at earlier on in the process. And so I think it definitely needs to be more of a shared collaborative process between CT State, finance, and the campuses, absolutely. But time is important. I think that's where the VOR may come into play. And then Nicola, I mean, as you know, is another campus that has a lot of, coming from a campus with nursing and allied health programs and limited science labs. When a student gets dropped for non-payment from a lab class, it destroys their schedule. And in many cases, it sets them back an entire year. And so I don't know the answer to that, but it is something that is certainly will continue to be part of the conversation, I'm sure.
Roberta, thank you for bringing this back to Senate. It is also a timely issue, so thank you.
My pleasure.
I appreciate it. It was a good introduction, and as we move through more drop periods, senators will become more well versed in this issue. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we're moving on to our last issue, which has been very dynamic, as I understand it, in the last 24 hours. So let me ask Dennis Boguski, are you here? Dennis, were you able to join? How about Larry Soleil? Then that means Seth is going to have to deal with the brunt of it. Seth, are you here? Well, okay. Then we're going to hear from.
He shows up as being here, but.
Okay. Well, we'll go to CT State. We'll let them talk first.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of.
I apologize. I think that Seth has been having some technical issues throughout the entire meeting. So I would expect that he'll jump back in when he can.
Okay. So the framework for compensation and release for both Senate, for all, I believe it's all statewide shared governance. That was moved along. That was moved out of our hands, the Senate and Congress, by early June. And I know CT State funded those. So Provost Heineck, can you tell us, as far as you know, since Seth is unable to join us at the moment, where things stand as far as CT State is concerned?
Sure, I'd be happy to. As you know, we did meet over the summer with the union regarding the framework. And I think both are interested in making sure that this moves forward. We did come to what I think is the agreement late last night. The framework was clarified because there were questions that came up during our conversation from the union on potential violations of the collective bargaining agreement. So we needed to go back and work with labor relations to ensure that we clarified the intent of the original framework, as well as the union wanted to go back and get additional clarification and feedback from their members. We've done that. We came up with the framework is now in a document that went to Larry, Dennis, and Seth late last night from Maryland. And all of the individual MOAs also went out to the union. So we are working on that process to make sure that everybody gets paid retroactively. So I believe that we are moving forward with that piece. And hopefully the union will be able to share the individual MOAs. And then once they come back to myself and Maryland, we will move quickly to sign off so that people can get paid as soon as possible in the cycle that they get their paperwork in on. Does that help?
It does, Dr. Heineck. And folks did start reaching out to me today and let me know that they had received their MOAs for the back pay. So thank you. And I believe we all received the MOA or the document related to release for the upcoming year. So Seth, have you been able to join us again?
Hey, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. I'm sorry, I missed what Provost Heineck shared, but certainly what can I share with the group that'd be helpful?
Seth, can you share what the provost shared that the union felt that there might be a violation of the contract. Where do you see a violation of the contract with the framework?
Well, I guess the current the latest draft. I guess we'll take it one step at a time. The latest draft that I shared with everybody yesterday. I think all senators should look at that and being that the framework that is slightly different than the framework that was agreed upon by the Senate and President Manduka last year, but not not significantly different. Well, I guess it'll be up for the Senate to decide how we feel about it. But
Seth, can you tell us what those differences are so we know what we're looking for?
Sure. So the primary differences are just for full-time staff on the Senate, and specifically, the framework last year had different options for compensation for staff, for full-time staff serving on the Senate, right? So the and to your question more specifically, the challenge with the framework last year where there were some provisions for staff to receive compensation in the form of EA contracts, which wasn't clear how that specifically aligned with some of our contracts. So the clarity in the framework that was shared yesterday with all of us is that basically for our full-time professional staff on the Senate, effectively, per the Four Seasons contract, staff get the first option for serving on committee, that staff get release time. So you get released from your kind of duties, so you have time to serve on committees. That's historically been the way that our professional staff serve on all types of committees, right? Campus committees, system-wide committees, et cetera. With all the kind of work that staff were serving, staff on the Senate and the Curricular Congress were doing last year, it became problematic, whereby many of us on the Senate said, we don't have time to do our Senate duties, or same thing for Curricular Congress. And effectively the release time, if you will, provision in our contract was not sufficient. So staff were requesting the ability to either get more comp time and adjust their schedules, or get an EA contract, get paid to serve on committee through an EA contract. And that's effectively what was basically in different ways agreed to in the framework last year. To your question specifically, some of that just didn't 100% align with our contracts. And thus, we had conversations with President Manduka and Provost Heineck about changing it to some degree, where specifically the change is that for staff on the Senate and Curricular Congress. The goal, if you will be to first seek release time and time and workload adjustments as needed so you can serve on the Senate or Curricular Congress. If that's not sufficient, then at the next resort, it would be, okay, I'm serving on these committees and I'm not having enough time to serve on the committees and do my regular workload. So then obviously comp time is another option under our contract. And then finally, if comp time is not sufficient and I'm still trying to serve on these committees and contribute to shared governance, et cetera, then getting an EA contract as a way of being compensated for your time is like the third and final option. So I think the update to the framework, as has been shared with everyone yesterday, is it more clearly lays that out, whereby the framework that was agreed upon last year kind of left the EA contract option, to be clear, more as more of an option that was kind of just available from the start. So maybe any professional staff member could have said from the outset, I want to be paid to serve on the committee. I want to get an EA contract. And that option was available just at the beginning. The updated framework basically for each professional staff on the Senate, as presented to us, would need to make sure you're exploring those other options first. And then the EA contract is kind of a last resort, if you will. That's how I understand the change to the framework that's been presented to all of us. And I'll just share that, we certainly had conversations with staff over the summer about the framework. The individuals had different opinions on how it's being changed or how management is proposing to change it. At this point, I think the Senate and the Congress certainly should look at this updated framework and determine if the group feels it's suitable to move forward with. But that's how I would understand how we got here. And I'll just quickly say, many of you got emails about the compensation for 2023, 2024 today. So obviously, follow up with me if there's any issues with what's being proposed. And we're similarly collecting any data for spring 2023 for anyone that believes there's still old compensation for spring 2023 as well.
Thank you. And spring 2023 was different because that was the individual colleges. So Provost Heineck.
Just a gentle reminder that 23-24 was also what was self-reported. So that's different in some fashion to what is 24-25. And I agree, Seth, I think you did a really nice job overviewing how the new document better clarifies the intent of what the agreement was originally and is in the spirit of what I think President Maduco had agreed to originally. And I think it's a good example of how we can work together between the unions and CT State's administration to have a better process moving forward. So I want to say thanks, Seth. I do appreciate the work that you and Larry and Dennis did along with Marilyn, because I do think it helps us all to be on the same page. The only other aspect that I would just make sure that folks are aware of is that if someone does get an EA contract, we will be looking to do a job description that is similar across the board and making sure that it's in compliance with the CBA agreement of no more than 7 hours. So I just want to make sure that that's also clear to folks.
Thank you. All right, folks. So I'm going to open this up to the floor. We've had a brief overview of what these changes are. I see one hand, Alan. Other hands may pop up while you're speaking, my friend. So there we go. We've got two, Alan and then Bonnie.
Thank you, Elle. Seth, I did receive an email from you on this early August, but I didn't receive anything today or yesterday. So I'm AFT, I think you know. So I don't know if you sent it out to everyone or just to 4C's members. I haven't gotten any communication from AFT as of yet.
Thank you, Alan. Hold on, Seth. We're going to get Bonnie's question and then Bonnie.
Yes, I did receive, because I am a 4Cs member, I did receive the email from Seth this morning. I think the MOU needs to be clearly, more specifically depicted in regards to not just what is due, but the hours that were stipulated and voted upon and upon agreement. So that MOU is very specific as to what and how you are being paid for that time period. Just so that that MOU is very clearly defined. I have some other questions in regards to that, but we can talk about that part offline.
Okay, thank you. Seth?
Thank you, Al. So Alan, yeah, follow up with our brother Dennis on that, and he can share, you know, whatever he got from HR.
And then
I've
Bonnie
been
asked
having
about the
trouble getting.
hours.
I just wonder if Seth, maybe in the chat, could you put his email, because when I type it in, nothing comes up.
Certainly, I'll email it to you.
Thank you.
And then Bonnie, you asked about the number of hours. Certainly, it wasn't. I think I specified in the email that I sent you, but I can certainly, if you want that to be reflected in the document MOA itself, that's fine. So I'll follow up with you on that.
China and then Thayer.
Hi, I'm new, so I'm probably a little behind on this, but I just wanted to know were all the unions involved, because I may be the only one at the table here that is not part of 4Cs and AFT. I am part of the Clerical Union, so I just wanted to make sure we, and I get this a lot as far as a staff person is concerned. We are forgotten about sometimes. So I want to be sure that all unions are brought to the table on this.
Thank you, China. So this is, I can actually speak to that one, because this is a look back. This is looking back at what, part of it is looking back, but it's also looking forward in so much as the release for this year. And we did not have anyone from AFSCME Clerical last year. So Provost Heineck, can you add that group and have Marilyn share the draft?
We actually did have one represented, so I do believe that even AFSCME was part of this conversation, and that Marilyn communicated appropriately with the head of AFSCME. So just so you
AFSCME
know,
Professional was, but was AFSCME Clerical also?
I believe so, yes.
Okay,
On
all
both
right.
ends, yeah.
Thank you. And then Thayer?
Yeah, my question is more towards this year's framework. I want to make sure that I understand processes and things got delayed, you know, due to summers and vacations and all those things. But I want to make sure that this year's framework is not going to happen again next year, because I know that on the staff side, we felt slightly left in the dark a little bit, I would say, that it kept getting dragged out, and it kept getting dragged out, and it kept getting dragged out. And, you know, it's great that we received the MOAs this morning, but it was almost like summer came, everyone was off, staff can wait until fall. That was kind of the feeling some of the staff was feeling about the situation. So I just want to make sure that compensation for everyone across the board is happening before the end of the Senate year wraps up, to make sure that we are equitable across the board for everyone.
Provost?
Answer that one. Absolutely. This framework is for retro pay and for this current year. So once it's signed off, we should have no issues moving forward. And I do apologize that it felt that way. That was never anyone's intent.
Thank you, Dr. Heineck.
Any further questions, comments, thoughts, concerns about the framework or back pay, folks? President Maduko.
Yeah, I just want to express my appreciation first to our union leaders, because I know that some are off contract, some are doing things, and for them to jump in and do their due diligence and connect with their members as they should. So I appreciate that. But I also appreciate just the patience of this group, both our now current Senate and colleagues in Curriculum Congress, but also our previous senators who are no longer part of this group. This has been, I won't say a moving target, but this has been a living and breathing organism in terms of, in the moment, many of you have caught omissions. Many of you have said, wait a minute, the bylaws. Though people might have been frustrated with the bylaws process, that's the work, right? To quote unquote get it right. So again, I really appreciate all of you, and eyes are on us. The common administrator, the common faculty member, the common staff member, right? They're looking to our governance bodies to address the issues, right, and address the opportunities that we have before us. I know it's difficult. I know many of you might even be critiqued by your colleagues in your respective departments and divisions and campuses. So, I really commend you. And the goal was to get it right, right? And I felt that both sides were communicating with each other. And when administration omitted or forgot to account for something, as they should, the union leadership did what they should be, did what they do all the time in terms of bring it to the attention to make sure that we're being right and equitable to everyone else. So again, that's the work, right? That's the power of shared governance. We're going to be better, right? I'm confident we're not going to deal with this issue again, because I think we've ironed out all the issues. But again, we have to help educate the masses when it comes to the intricacies of an institution that is 1 year, 1 month, and 30 days old, and that we continue to lay down the foundation of our very young college. So again, I just appreciate everyone on this call, and obviously I appreciate our colleagues in Curriculum Congress as well.
Thank you, President Viduko. I have a few remarks as we wrap things up. Using the chat, I just want sitting senators to be aware that anything happens in the chat is informal. It's not part of the minutes, it's not part of the record. We do have one person on the Executive Council who monitors to make sure that a hot button issue isn't missed, but it is not part of the meeting itself. I'm not discouraging you from using it. I'm just letting you know that this is the case. On the issue of the home campus search, this has been returned to Quinebaug Valley to see if they're going to bring it back to Senate. If it is, we will ask senators once again to get the temperature of their campuses. And I want to talk for just a minute about the really fluid, sometimes, role that senators have. Senators both represent their campuses. Thus, when senators ask questions, it may not be their question. It is a question that could be coming from their campus. And we have to understand that sometimes we ask questions because it is important to our campus, even if it is questionable. Even if we know the answer, we are asking it because our campus has put that question forward. And senators are asked to do lots of different things. We represent our campus. We share information with our campus. We collect information from our campus and share it at Senate. So we have many different hats on all the time. And as we do our work, it becomes more complex, but it also gets easier because we become attuned to all those different roles. And I want to say that you have other folks on your campus who have been senators. Lean in and ask questions. Don't hesitate to email all to the senators. You have access to the list on our SharePoint. And if it hasn't become a regular habit of yours, it will soon be regular for you to go to the SharePoint and see what's in the folder for the next meeting. I'm going to ask folks to update your WebEx. So I see that there are some errors happening. WebEx did some really big updates. It actually looks different this semester. We don't have the big red box around telling us that we're recording. There's a teeny tiny light up in the upper right-hand corner. And again, show one another grace. We are going to be a little bit better this year than we were last year. And with that, if there are no further announcements, I just want to remind you that we will be in person at Manchester for our September 27th meeting. And folks should be turning to their campus shared governance and finding out what went wrong, what went right, because that is the time that we learn about our state of the college at that meeting. So with that, Roberta, did I see your hand up? It's down now.
You did. I was going to remind you about travel authorizations for that meeting.
Oh, thank you. Right. Before you start traveling, please do your travel authorization. Thank you for that reminder. And you can contact your business office or your bursar. Aside from, I think that concludes our work. It is 2:10. This is the shortest meeting we will have in all likelihood. But with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Roberta?
I did not have a motion. I'm sorry.
Go
I
ahead.
was just going to ask if you could let people know when you anticipate sending out inquiries about committee membership so they can look for those announcements.
That will go out shortly. Committee membership, it's a Microsoft form. You should see it in your email inboxes by 3 o'clock today.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. And somebody, I heard a motion to
So-
adjourn.
So moved.
A
Alan,
motion
so
to
moved.
adjourn.
There we go. We're not going to take a vote on this, folks. We're just going to say goodbye. Have a good day, and I will see you in a month, folks.
Thanks, Al.
Enjoy your weekend,
Yeah.
everyone.
Everyone
have a great
Have a
long
safe
weekend.
weekend.
Be
Bye, all.
safe.
Thanks.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.